Alright, all you year-ending night drivers out there, welcome back to Under the Radar. And this week's Stunts of the Week comes from not only Julian 73s with their stunt, Crash Motocross, but also from the Axel Mack himself with his stunt, Motocross. Bikes for 2 stunts to wrap up this year. And the reason why these 2 stunts made it in for the Stunt of the Week is because the first one, after he crashed and nearly ended his own life while still wearing a helmet, he still got it back up to his feet. Broken neck and all, still made it up to his feet. Bravo, man, bravo. And for the other stunt, the reason why it made it in for the Stunts of the Week for this week, folks, well, the fact that these crazy motorcyclists were able to pull off insane backflips in perfect synchronization, and despite one of them twisting their ankle in the process, still got back up to his feet and was able to pull off that Mount Chiliad with rice. And I got it right this time, Maestro. Really did. And speaking of getting things right, folks, I think it's time for us to get ready to rev our engines and see who had the best of the best track to wrap up this icy cold AC December and for this year and the decade on the right foot, as we go into a very special year-ending, decade-ending edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Month. And the first track that we have up comes from the creator, Raphael SPBR, with his track, The Race 1. And the reason why we decided to pick this track for the Elite Tracks of the Month for this month is not only because it reminds us of a water park gone wrong, but the fact the sheer danger of it alone is enough to make sure that you can win first place if you try hard enough. And the reason why we say that, folks, is because of the fact that most of this race is over water and the fact that it has little to no barricades for this race. So the only tip of advice we have for you fans out there who wants to take on this dangerous race is to make sure you choose your moment to take over your opponent wisely. Because if they can push you in just one direction or the other, you're gonna fall into the water and it will cost you during this very race. But hey, silver lining for you fans out there, you can use every vehicle available to you with the exception of the vehicles with the special transformation or the gun runner vehicles during this very race. So it should be an easier way for you to win, at least on motorcycles at least. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator, Chastic Click, with their said track, Xmas Came Early. And the reason why we decided to pick this track for this month of tracks, folks, not only because it gives you a wide variety of vehicles to use, but also it's a snowy track that will test your drift skills to the fullest. And the only reason I say that, folks, is because most of the track is covered in snow, and if you're not careful on certain hairpin turns, you will fly off the track. So yeah, the only tip of advice we have for you for this track is to choose your cars wisely and take careful care on how to turn during those said hairpin turns. Unless you watched enough, Fast and Furious movies, then you're fine. You're absolutely fine. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator, Pt.4 with his said track, Christmas Transformed. And the reason why in the world we decided to pick this track, not only because it got us into the Christmas spirit, but also because we forgot to mention when we picked this track for the track of the week, you have to race up a giant oversized chimney. I kid you not when I say that, folks, and I'm sorry we forgot to include it in for the track itself, but hey, it's something that you're gonna really have a lot of fun trying to get up. And the only tip of advice we have for you fans out there, as the same thing Petey Pan Mofo would tell you, is when going down the chimney, pull back and turn to avoid the walls. Yeah, only tip of advice we have for you fans out there for this transformation race that goes land, air, and sea, and something that the maestro called a Santa's training course, which would be a perfect name for this. I wonder why he didn't use it. Oh well. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator, Warlord Wedgie Woo, with his said track, Red Canyon Grand Prix. And the reason why in the world we picked this track for this month is not only because it gives you a chance to use every vehicle across the board with the exception of vans and utility vehicles, but also because this track, and we didn't realize this, was themed after something from Red Dead Revolver from a fantasy valley, and not to mention is highly elevated above Los Santos itself, or at least in the downtown sector by where the construction buildings are. And the only tip of advice we have for you fans out there is beware taking the shortcuts because it does have slowdown lanes in them, and alongside with it, be careful trying to overtake your opponent on elevated roads because one false bump to your bumper or to the side of your car and you're falling off like a classic episode of Speed Racer. Just a warning. Just a warning. And the last but not least track that made it in for the tracks of the month for this month and for this decade and year comes from the creator, Jojo Mikumi Raisin, with his said track, Face to Face Port Narc, or Nawak. I don't know how to say it right, but all I know is, folks, the reason why we picked this track for this week is not only because of the fact that it's on a very thin platform involving you and a couple of your friends in a transformation race with a whole bunch of vehicles that will flip you like an omelet in IHOP in the early morning hours, but also because of the sheer danger of it all. And I think the first sentence that we said probably covered that alone. But let me tell you folks, seeing is believing when it comes to the said track. And the only tip of advice we have for you fans out there is, you know what? We'll go Reno 911 with it. Gun it and run it. The only advice we can give you for this race, because the only advantage I got a feeling you'll possibly have is when you get the rocket Voltic and can zip your way across without getting hit. And the odds of you not getting hit is a low 35%. Maybe lower than that. I'm not sure. I'm not good with percentages and math. And with that said, folks, for this month wraps it up for another classic edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Month. And to all of you track creators for the past decade that's been creating these said tracks, I can't wait to see what you got up your sleeves for the next decade, so keep up the great work. And with that said, folks, I think it's time for us to head back into this music, and when we return, we'll be back with the final segment for Under the Radar for this decade, right after this. So don't get lost in the madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned.